Yeah.
How old are you?
12.
Oh, okay. Only to 10.
Okay, that's good.
A series of dark and highly controversial allegations surrounding the entertainment industry, specifically focusing on the experiences of former child stars like Orlando Brown and Corey Feldman. The narrative weaves together a complex tapestry of conspiracy theories, personal accounts of trauma, and systemic critiques of Hollywood's power structures. At the heart of the discussion is the claim that young performers are subjected to extreme abuse and exploitation by a network of powerful elites, with frequent references made to the late Jeffrey Epstein and his infamous private island. The dialogue begins with jarring and metaphorical language regarding the treatment of children, using disturbing imagery of consumption and young human flesh to illustrate the perceived dehumanization of minors in the industry. This set the tone for a deeper look into the life of Orlando Brown, a former Disney star best known for his role on That's So Raven. The transcript suggests that Brown's well-documented legal troubles and erratic public behavior are not merely the result of mental illness or substance abuse, but are actually a defensive front or a direct consequence of the trauma he suffered at the hands of industry executives. It is alleged that Brown was sent to Epstein's island at the age of 17 and witnessed horrors that he has been attempting to expose for years, despite the public largely dismissing him as unstable. One of the more sensational aspects of the transcript involves Brown's specific claims about Epstein's operations. He alleges that Epstein was involved in a bizarre scheme of kidnapping celebrities, replacing them with others, or even suggesting that Epstein's death was faked as part of a larger saga. He describes a market where individuals are mistreated on a private beach while the world believes they are deceased. Furthermore, the text introduces the concept of panda eyes, a term used to describe a physical manifestation of a specific, ritualized form of abuse. Brown claims that this abuse is used to break or control individuals, turning them into whatever their abusers desire. He points to public figures with black eyes as evidence of this hidden ritual, suggesting that what the public sees as a standard physical altercation is actually a sign of industry-sanctioned torture. The narrative also connects these individual experiences to a broader corporate and systemic level. There are claims that missing children or victims of trafficking are hidden in plain sight, appearing in major advertisements for companies like Target and Walmart. The transcript argues that these victims are forced to smile for the camera while living in a state of perpetual suffering. This level of coordination, according to the speakers, involves major networks like Nickelodeon and Disney, which are accused of acting as suppliers for powerful figures in Hollywood. The transcript then transitions into a chronological account of Orlando Brown's downfall to show how his life flipped upside down after his tenure at Disney. Beginning in 2007, Brown faced a string of arrests involving substance possession, DUIs, and domestic disputes. While mainstream media portrayed these incidents as the typical collapse of a former child star, the transcript implies a correlation between his legal woes and his attempts to speak out against the industry. It draws a parallel between Brown and other actors like Brisher Gray from the show Empire, who also faced legal issues and a perceived career sabotage after the height of their fame. A common theme in these stories is the allegation that the industry intentionally destroys the credibility of those who might expose its secrets, often by labeling them as crazy or addicts. Another significant voice in the transcript is that of Corey Feldman, who has been a vocal whistleblower regarding pedophilia in Hollywood for decades. Feldman's testimony is used to validate the claims made by Brown. Feldman describes a circle of older men who surrounded child actors in the 1980s, acting like vultures. He emphasizes that child stars lack the freedom of choice and are often raised in a business environment rather than a loving home, learning how to read contracts by age 10 while being deprived of genuine parental affection. Feldman specifically mentions the late Corey Haim, asserting that Haim's tragic death was the result of trauma inflicted by a Hollywood mogul who remains protected by his status. The role of parents is also scrutinized. The transcript suggests that in many cases, the parents of child stars are complicit in the exploitation, essentially selling access to their children in exchange for financial gain and industry connections. This betrayal of trust by primary caregivers is presented as a foundational element of the cycle of abuse, leaving the children with no safe haven. The discussion moves toward the question of why, if these allegations are true, the authorities have not taken more decisive action. The answer provided is rooted in the concept of power. It is argued that the individuals involved are multi-millionaires with deep-seated influence in the highest levels of society, including government and law enforcement. The transcript posits that these elites control the very institutions meant to prosecute them, reaching into the echelons of billionaires and even past and present heads of state. This level of systemic corruption is used to explain why the Epstein list and other evidence have not led to the total dismantling of these alleged networks. In the latter half of the text, the focus remains on the victim-blaming narrative. It points out that when stars like Feldman or Brown speak out, they are historically met with skepticism and ridicule. However, the transcript notes that as more information about Jeffrey Epstein's network becomes public, many people are beginning to revisit these crazy claims and finding that they correlate with newly revealed facts. The implication is that these actors were not speaking out of a place of delusion, but from the first-hand experience of a reality that the public was not yet ready to accept. The text also touches on the psychological impact of this environment, describing how child stars are never taught how to have a family or how to care for somebody. This lack of a moral or emotional foundation is seen as a deliberate byproduct of an industry that treats humans as commodities. The casting couch culture is described as being even more insidious when applied to children, as it happens entirely under the radar and is shrouded in a code of silence that few dare to break. The conclusion of the narrative reflects on the general pattern of child stars going off the rails between the ages of 16 and 25. Rather than viewing this as a personal failure or the result of sudden wealth, the transcript frames it as a symptom of the horrors they endured during their formative years. It invites the audience to consider the possibility that the messy public lives of these celebrities are actually cries for help or the visible scars of a hidden war. Ultimately, the transcript serves as a summary of the various whistleblowers and conspiracy theories that suggest Hollywood operates a massive, protected system of child exploitation. By linking Orlando Brown's specific, often surreal allegations with Corey Feldman's more grounded historical accounts, the narrative seeks to build a case for a widespread and ongoing crisis. It positions the Epstein Island revelations not as an isolated incident, but as a small glimpse into a much larger, darker reality that encompasses the entire entertainment industry and its corporate partners. The text ends by asking the audience to weigh the credibility of these whistleblowers and to consider if the reality of the industry is as dark as these individuals claim it to be, highlighting a deep distrust of power and a demand for systemic accountability. Through this lens, the legal troubles, mental health struggles, and erratic behaviors of former child stars are reinterpreted as the fallout of a predatory system that prioritizes profit and power over the lives and safety of children.